All right, 3.7, solve percent problems.
Oh.
So these are like one sentence word problems essentially. Not even like, I wouldn't even say sentence, but basically. So there's a couple different ways we can do these. Some of them I actually am going to do a little differently than the formula, but I'm going to give you the formula so that if you feel like you want to use the formula method instead, you can. But I just think there's an easier way to do it than just doing it with the formula. But solving percent problems using proportions, which ties into what you just took your quiz on. So you can represent A is P% of B using the proportion
Is that a D or a P?
right here.
Yeah.
This is a P.
Okay.
My pen was glitching, so it was being weird. So using the proportion A over B equals P over 100. Okay, I don't know what just happened. I would love to know. I don't know what just happened. The other day it glitched for like 5 minutes and I couldn't write or erase anything. And I literally had to try to stop what I was doing, like turn the whole thing off and turn it back on. It was annoying. I ran the update that I had and I think it just caused it to glitch. But anyways, where A is a part of base B and P over 100 or P% is the percent. So obviously this is a proportion, but oftentimes instead of writing it this way when we go to actually do problems, because this is consistently the formula, if I'm trying to find the percent and it's like, you know, A is what percent of B, then I'm dividing A to like A over B, and then I ultimately have to multiply it by 100 because A divided by B is going to give me a decimal and I need to turn it into a percent. So the way that I will oftentimes write this equation is A over B times 100 equals P. And so that's why I was saying, like, you have this formula, and I'm still using the formula. I've just already manipulated it. So if you want to do it that way that I have written in red, that's fine. If you would prefer to do it like it is in blue, that's also fine. I will normally do it like it's written in red, just because it saves me actually having to show that multiplication step. The other formula that we have is for the percent equation, and it's going to look very similar to this one here. So the percent equation, you can represent A is P% of B using the equation A equals P% times B. So again, this is just, oh, sorry, didn't realize it was at the bottom. Where this is just a manipulation of the formula you've already had. It's just written a different way. Where A is part of base B. And P% is the percent. So this is literally the same formula that you have up here, but instead of it being written as P over 100, they wrote it as P% and they multiplied it by B. So it's the exact same formula, just written a different way. Depending on what information you're given, it's easier to use one or the other. So just to give you a little summary, kind of like a cheat code, if you will, for this stuff, to help you if you are trying to determine which thing do I use. Let me see, let's do this. Types of percent problems. So we would have, if you're trying to, or well, here, let's do it this way. The percent problem, and then I'll do an example, and I'll show you the equation. So the first one, if they tell you to find a percent, it will say something like, what percent of 136 is 51? So the equation would be 51 equals P% times 136. Or if I wanted to, since I know I'm going to be solving for the percent, when it says what percent of, then we're dividing. And so I could also write this as 51 over 136 equals P%. Now, I would ultimately have to multiply this number by 100 to get it as a percent. Because this would be like, or let me rewrite it this way. This would be the same as P over 100. So you would need to multiply this number by 100 to actually get it. So that's the first one. The next one, find part of a base. So if I have that, this would be something like, what number is 15% of 88? Try to draw these little like columns here so we can actually see what's happening. So then the equation that would go with this, try to separate this, would be A equals the 15% of 88, so times 88. Now, when you actually go to multiply these things, do I multiply 15 times 88?
No.
What do I do instead?
0.15.
Yeah, I have to move the decimal place 2 to the left. You may have a number, they may ask you like 150% of a number or something like that. There's a couple problems like that, so you just have to move it over 2. So the decimal here needs to move 2 places, and so what this actually will end up being is A equals 0.15 times 88 to give you that one. And then the last one, if it tells you to find a base, and it won't obviously necessarily say it in those terms, but what you're looking for in terms of the wording is if they say 20 is 12.5% of what number, that's essentially telling you I need to find the denominator of my fraction. And so what this would look like is 20 equals 12.5 as a percent times B. I would need to, this is a percent, so I would need to move my decimal point 2 places. That would actually be 0.125. It's being multiplied by B, so this would actually be dividing. So it would be 20 over 0.125 equals B. And that would be how that one would end up being written.
I think I know what B is. I think it's 160.
That's possible. I don't know. I'm just setting these up.
What? Actually, B is 160.
It's very possible. But as far as the wording, if you're struggling with the way that something is written, I would recommend you go back and look at this to help you to figure out what you are trying to find. So we're going to jump into some examples here. So these say use a proportion to answer the question. I'm going to use my modified proportion that looks like this to answer most of these just because it makes it a little bit easier. So number 4 says, what percent of 120 is 66? So this one wants me to find the percent. Okay, what percent? So I'm using essentially this top setup. So what percent of 120 is 66? So that would be 66 divided by 120. I would go ahead and multiply it by 100 because I know I'm trying to find a percent. Anytime we're trying to find a percent, I need to multiply by 100. And that's going to be equal to P. So then on your calculator, you would type in 66 divided by 120. And that will give you 0.55. And then multiply that by 100. Or you can just move the decimal place 2 to the right. But that's going to end up being 55 equals P. And I need to put a little percent sign on there to have the answer completely right. Okay? So you need to write down the problem statement from the book when you do these problems. You need to set up the equation so I can see what you're doing. But then after that, you can use your calculator to actually type in the numbers to figure out what that number is. I don't expect you to know what 66 divided by 120 is or to sit there and do all of these by hand because some of them are going to actually end up being decimals like that are out several places. So let's see. Number 6. What number is 60% of 85? So if we're looking at what number, okay, then is 60% of 85. In this case, I'm going to be multiplying, okay, the percent times the number to find A. So this is going to be 60%. I need to move the decimal place 2. So this is going to be 0.60 times 85. So 0.6 times 85 is going to be 51. And these ones are just a number. So make sure you pay attention because if it's a percent, it needs to have a little percent sign on it. If it's just a number, then obviously there's no like unit type thing that's going on it. Are we doing okay with typing these in? Those of you that have your calculators. Okay. 8. 42 is 200% of what number? Okay, so in this one, I am trying to find the base. Okay, so 42 is 200% of what number? That would mean essentially as a proportion. So I'm going to write it 2 different ways. 42 over x equals 200%. I take this decimal and I move it 1, 2. So this is actually equal to 2. So then I would have to multiply by x, divide by 2. Or the other way you can set this up is the percent equation, which is A equals the P percent times B. I can replace A with 42 and the percent as 2 because I've converted it to a decimal. So 42 equals 2 times B, divide by 2. So B is what? If I divide by 2? 21. Okay, so a couple of different ways you can set that problem up. I don't care which method you use. It says you have to use a proportion, but I'm okay with you just using the equation. Any questions on any of these so far? They've all been different.
So, does P equal proportion? Or,
P is the percent.
so why do you have to put a percent sign after P? Like, isn't that equal to, like, percent?
Up here, like in the formula, it's just the way they write it so that you know that it's a percent because I need to actually convert it to a decimal when I'm solving it. So it's more just like in the formula, it's just like a placeholder to remind you that it's written as a percent value. So, but if you don't write it, I mean, it's not going to like take points off. The only place I would take points off is if like it's like the answer is supposed to be a percent and you don't write the percent sign on the number itself. Then that would be where it would be. All right, number 10. What percent of 225 is 99? So what am I trying to find in this one?
What percent?
What percent? So I set it up. What percent of 225 is 99? That means I have 99 divided by 225. And if I'm trying to find a percent, what do I also have to do? Multiply by 100. So that's going to be equal to P. Somebody with a calculator multiply that and tell me what it is. So 44, and make sure we put that percent sign on there. And it's like that. Those are probably the easiest ones in terms of like setup and stuff. Not that any of these are particularly hard. It's just the wording can be a little confusing. 12. What number is 18% of 150? So what am I trying to find?
What number?
A.
What number?
Yep. So how do I set this one up? Any ideas?
A equals 0.18 times 150.
Yep. A, oh, not that. A equals 0.18, because I got to move this decimal place over to be able to multiply it, times 150. And what do you get when you multiply that? 27. And so if you wanted to check this and make sure it's right, you can do 27 over 150, and that should come back and give you 0.18 if you've done it correctly. $14. What number is 82% of 215? How would I set this one up?
A
Is
equals
A
0.82
equal-
times 215.
A equals 0.82 times 215. And what do I get when I do that?
Wait. I'm not sure what's wrong.
176.3.
Yep.
Jeez, no.
If at any point these come out to give you a decimal that's more than like one decimal place, I just want you to round to the nearest decimal, like one decimal place. 2 more and then we'll stop for today. We're going to do a few more tomorrow that are more like application with these, and then I have also a couple decimal worksheets to help us. I may be moving that quiz that's supposed to be on Monday just so we can spend more time on this stuff to make sure that y'all understand it, because the wording can get people. 189 is 90% of what number? So what am I solving for this time?
Base.
Yep, the base is of what number? So how would I set this one up then?
189 equals 90% times b.
Yep. So 90%, or if you want, you can go ahead and write it as the decimal of 0.9, but either way, it means same thing. Times b. So then what do I have to do to actually solve?
Divide by 0.9.
Yep, so 189 over 0.9 equals b. And you'll notice I'm not actually showing the divided by stuff in these problems. I think that y'all have gotten to the point where, at least for these problems, you don't need to show that. So what do you get when you divide that? 210 equals b. And one last one of this, and then tomorrow, like I said, we'll do a couple little word problems, and then I have a worksheet for you as well. 71.5 is 52% of what number? What am I finding in this one?
The base.
Yep, the base. It's at the end, so I'm solving for base. So, how would I set this one up?
It's 71.5 equals 52% times b.
Yep,
Or 0.52.
yep. 0.52 or 52%. Just if you say it as a percent, just make sure you move that decimal when you get to multiply. Times b. So you divide 71.5 over 0.52. So b equals,
137.5.
yep, 137.5. So we've got about 4 little word problems that are more like application type problems that we'll do with this stuff tomorrow, the worksheet, and then y'all have the rest of the time, like you'll have all of class tomorrow pretty much to work on this stuff so that you can get it done. And then we have one more section that we'll do on Friday, so probably that quiz will get moved to Tuesday. That was originally supposed to be Monday, so just be aware of that.